My name is Andrew Cantor. I'm the editor-in-chief of MrWatchMaster. Today we're meeting with Manuel Emch, who's the head of strategy at Louis Erard watches. So I'm going to ask Manuel to introduce himself, tell us about his role, and tell us about his career in the watch business, and then we'll go forward from there. Over to you, Manuel.
Well, in a nutshell, my name is Manuel Emch. I'm actually almost a veteran in the watch industry. I've been working in this industry for the last 20 years now, actually 21 years. 2021, I started in 2000, and I built two watch companies, one from scratch in a big group, which is called Jaquet Droz, that I built from a really small 2-3 people team, a few $100,000 turnover into a 30-40 million, I think 40 at the end, $40 million turnover company that has, I think, managed to establish itself very nicely in these 10 years. Then I joined a small independent in Geneva, where I was also I would say shareholder in the company, which is RJ, that I led for 6-7 years before I decided that, well, not 100% aligned with my shareholders on the strategy to follow. So I left the company, sold my parts, and decided that actually initially I want to take care a bit more about myself than just about watches. Mm-hmm. And things put together, I started to do a bit of consulting business, because a lot of people ask me for advice, and that's what I do today. Today I have my own little consulting boutique with major focus, obviously, the watch industry, but not only. I have, I would say, within this consulting job, I have two big customers of mine, or I would say major customers, which is on one side Louis Erard, where I'm also invested in, and I just joined them as a consultant 1.5 years back, and since January 1st I'm delegated board member, so I'm even more involved. I joined the board of directors and trying to be even more involved. And the other big assignment is I'm also chairman of the oldest Russian company. It's a company that's over 300 years old. It's considered as the first officially legally set company in Russia. Happens to do watches too. Wow. It's called Regulators. It's a very interesting company where you have a full-fledged manufacturing unit where they produce basically mechanical movements from A to Z. Wow. Including spirals and escapements. So it's a very interesting company, mainly present in Russia, strongly present in Russia, but that we are also developing. And aside of this, I have several other mandates in the watch industry, mostly in high-end watch companies, so small independent companies producing there, I would say, from 50 to maybe 300-400 watches a year, where I would say, more in coaching, strategy, support elements. Mm-hmm. So that's then I'm also involved in universities. I established the first master and bachelor degree in watch design. I'm a trained designer. Did my economic studies on one side, but also did automotive design. And I was always frustrated to see that design, which for me has a very important, should be very important in a creative industry, because the watch industry is a creative industry. There wasn't any specific degree you could do in watch design. In Switzerland, you can study fashion, but there's no real fashion brands. Right. You can study cinema, but there's not really a Switzerland is not very famous for cinema. Graphic design, automotive design, and different others, but there was nothing for watches. And the watch industry is still the third biggest economical branch in Switzerland. And for me, it was important to set this up. So I did this with the Art and Design University in Geneva. So you can now either study bachelor or master's in watch design. And I also joined the university in their what they call academic board. Aside of this, I'm also involved in different technology companies.
Gosh. You're a busy man.
Yeah, I'll try to. But I think I'm a curious man more than a
You're
busy
curious.
man.
Okay. So
Um,
do we take the university part? Is it something we don't know about you, or is there something else that you do in your sort of other life that we wouldn't know about you?
well, I do a little bit. I do a lot in the arts world, and a lot in also have one or two clients in winery. So
Ah,
that's for the I would say that's for the overall environment of watches. A bit of good wine and a bit of beautiful art is always welcome
what's not to
with a
like?
few.
A
So
great,
so see a few
great
things.
combination. No, I'm
Yeah.
a big fan of Jaquet Droz, and you know, as a collector, they're wonderful pieces. I love the attention to detail, and you know what you did with that organisation was extraordinary. So, I think today we'll focus on Louis Erard. Uh,
Obviously.
and so, you know, just tell me. You say you joined the board. Congratulations, that's fantastic. You know, they're a super interesting company and an organisation that has. I know you've done some great collaborations, but you know, how is business at the moment?
Well, it's actually, I must say, 2020 has been a very good year. It's been the best year for quite a few years. Well, obviously, the business is challenging, but I think we have seen, I mean, we've seen throughout the year that the companies which were, I would say, continue to be agile, continue to create, to innovate, who were daring and trying new ideas, actually managed to actually perform quite well. Aside, obviously, of the big five, today we can say five, 4 or 5 big independent watch companies that have such a strong demand that it's continuing. But what we have seen, I think what's very interesting is if you ask me for how is business, well, we have seen that there is been a major change and move towards more and more independent watchmaking. On one side, we see the winner takes it all logic with the Rolexes, Pateks, and APs of this world, where people are not just there's not just collecting these watches out of passion, but there's also a bit of an investment value. But on the other side, we have seen a shift towards independent watchmaking in different price segments, obviously mostly in the high-end price segment. And we've seen this polarization towards these two directions, and everything in the middle, I would say, everything that's maybe not strong enough, or that is not innovative enough, or not creative enough, or maybe also a bit too corporate, has, I would say, been struggling a bit more than the independent watchmaking. And and I saw this again, as you asked me before with Louis Erard, I mean, we've innovated, we created a lot of things, we dared, we were doing unexpected, but still very well made products. And I think that helped us to have a fairly, I would even say, very good year considering the circumstances.
Mm. So what are you currently working on? I know you did a big collaboration with Yanni Halter, which was launched at the back end of last year. What are you currently working on now?
Well, we work on different things. For me, Louis Erard is a bit of a. I like this brand because I like this price positioning.
Yeah.
You see, I mean, I've built watch companies in high-end price segments, and well, it somehow is. You can do a lot of crafts, a lot of artisanship, very refined mechanical movements, but to a certain extent, it remains quite, I would say, difficult to access for I would say younger or newer collectors, because not everybody can spend 15, 20, 30,000 on a watch. And I think we neglected a little bit in this industry, this I would say affordable price bracket, not just producing, I would say, how do you say that, a sort of common product or something, a volume product, but
Yeah.
also bringing a bit this philosophy of high-end watchmaking in an affordable price range. And that's exactly what we work on with Louis Erard. We basically, well, collaborations are something we're going to continue because they're a good brand accelerator. They help us to create unexpected different things. They're obviously also very good in terms of visibility and talking products.
Yeah.
We also building on the backbone of that collaborations that we actually do in 3 fields. In watchmakers, we started with Alain Silberstein and Vianney. We have other 3-4 others were quite advanced, some of them, but we don't intend to do too many of them, maybe 1 a year.
Yeah.
But we also will do this in an environment of design and architecture. And we're going to launch the first collaboration there probably by summer. It's all a bit mixed up with the COVID because we had initially foreseen to launch it in the design fair in Milan, which is normally in March, but it's not going to be happening.
Yeah.
We're also going to start collaboration with contemporary artists, very famous contemporary artists, some of them being represented by galleries like Gauguin or others. And this initially was foreseen at Basel, Art Basel. It's going to be probably also a little bit different date. So we have these 3 kinds of environments, very creative people, creative watchmakers, creative architects, designers, and creative artists. Well, you can say artist is per se creative. But so that these collaborations we're going to continue always in this logic of 178 pieces, because we want to remain exclusive, and also because words are talking for us. But we also will start building this, I would say, when this idea of affordable high-end watchmaking, artisanship and craftsmanship. Mm-hmm. And the next product we're going to launch in February will be something quite unexpected, I would say. We're going to work with one of the most, I would say, sought after craft, very traditional, high-end craft, handmade craft, something that is very, we actually mostly find only on very, very premium watches, tourbillons, minute repeaters, or very high-end products. But we are bringing these Swiss-made handcrafts into products that we're going to retail at this core price of ours between 2 and 5,000 Swiss francs.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in terms of, keeping it exclusive, people want something that is, limited, I guess is another way to look at it. And I think you're right. Mm-hmm. For thinking about Louis Erard, I mean, what is some, I mean, they tend to look at sort of regulator type dials. I mean, what's the kind of thinking behind that? I mean, I'm a big fan of regulators. I think they're beautiful and they're wonderful, and I don't think we do enough justice to them. But maybe tell us something we don't know about Louis Erard.
Well, see, Louis historically was a regulator. It started back in 1929 with regulator watches, and I think it's been part of the DNA. And for us, I think a regulator is a very not only technical piece. I mean, don't forget, regulators were made to give the time for time setting in watch manufacturers. So
it's iconic. It's an iconic design, isn't it? It's
iconic in its design. It's interesting in its mechanical complexity. Mm-hmm. Still something, I would say, it's not a ultra complex complication, but it's a nice, sweet complication, and that's something we're interested in. I mean, if you look at our classical collection, we basically brought it all down to 3 hands with a small second, the regulator, and the 1 push chrono. And 1 push chrono for mono pusher, if you like, is also a nice little technical feat that's totally undervalued and under presented in the watch industry. And we like to focus on little but nice, unusual, and somehow also complex complications to give this credibility to the brand. But you'll not see Louis Erard going into major complications, because that's not our aim. Our aim is to stay in this very interesting, affordable high-end watchmaking bracket, but offering the real deal, basically offering a real deal in mechanical know-how. We don't produce the movements ourselves, but we work with what I consider today one of the best partners for mechanical Swiss-made movements, which is Sellita, and with some of the best and most valued crafts that you can't find otherwise, because today brands are focused on quite a lot of trying to optimize, and I think we are looking and trying to create emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's that connection, isn't it? That emotional connection to what does the brand stand for? Why should I be interested in it? So let's talk about that. What about your passions? You know, what watch do you wear? What is your go-to watch?
Well,
I hope you're
look,
wearing a Louis Erard today.
I actually do, but since I'm on my computer, and but see, I have next to me. It's actually quite interesting. Um, I mean, I'm passionate about watchmaking. I love watchmaking, and per se, I also collect watches, and I wear watches of different brands. I understand that obviously when I'm in representation for one or the other brand, especially Louis Erard, well, obviously wear a Louis Erard.
Of
And
course.
within this, I obviously gonna wear the ones I created, whether it's the Silberstein or the Vianney. I have one of each, and I have a deal with the companies that whatever I create, I get to get one piece of it because I never did this before, and that's one of my biggest, I would say, miss out or frustrations.
Yeah.
Um, I wear these. I still tend to wear my very first Grand Second Jaquet Grand Second because that's been my first watch design. That's been my first creation. That's been the starting point of the whole development of the brand.
Yeah.
I have a very emotional connection, and I must admit that I produced myself what I call artist proof. So there's a little print on the enamel dial, the full fire enamel dial, where it's written EA for artist proof, basically.
Really? Wow.
Preuve d'artiste. So
Nice.
that I
I
wear.
love that.
Yeah, that's my little
That's nice.
treat. That's nice.
That's
And
nice. I mean, that to me is like it's like I remember Jean-Claude Biver saying that when he was, I think it was at Hublot or one of the Blancpain maybe, and he said when I would always get, I don't want the 1 out of 500. I used to get the 0 out of 500. So he would always,
well,
you know what I mean? It's just one of those. Of
absolutely. Well, Jean-Claude is a big collector. We all know that.
course,
So he's also somebody really passionate about the watch industry. And
absolutely.
we all, when we have this passion, we obviously always looking for something special, different. But at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the number or whatever. It's the the
Yeah,
emotionality it creates with you. So look, I have this watch because it's for me the beginning of my own career, of my own
yeah,
story in the watch industry. It has a lot of meaning, so I tend to wear this because it has this. It's a bit of a feel good watch.
exactly. It means something. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a connection.
Absolutely important.
Yeah,
And then, but then I must say, I also have I have some of the classics. I do have my Daytona that I wear that I like to wear for daily sports
yeah.
or daily use. I have my Royal Oak classic one that I wear sometimes for dinners. I mean, I like to mix and match. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
for me, but I must say again, I have some of the I would say the classical ones
mm,
you could expect somebody to collect, but I must say I more and more appreciate to wear the little unique, different the
yeah,
watches that that create a bit of talking. I mean, a Rolex is a Rolex.
yeah, yeah.
It's a bit of a common product. But money value proposition is difficult to do any better.
It is. But then you talked about the Russian side of the business. You know, it's
Yeah.
Russian horology is a really interesting area. I know it's very military driven, but the sort of and I love all that kind of sort of
Hmm.
aspect of it. So I think there's I mean the great thing about watches and timepieces, and I mean there's a massive great history, but it's also the fact is there's so many different pieces. I mean I've got so many. There's always something else.
Well, that I would say is a bit of that is probably a bit of a downturn when you get into it. I mean, you always have the impression that you always crave for the next one,
Of course.
but I must say, I mean, let's say it this way: I have this chance to create quite a lot of products,
Mhm.
and I tend to wear what I created because obviously it talks to me differently, but I mean, it's a passion, and every passion has sometimes you sometimes would think that you tend to overdo it with passions, but look, it makes me smile, it makes me happy, it makes me it becomes a sort of ceremonial to choose my watch,
Yeah.
and
A lot of thought goes into it. I think that's the point. So if
absolutely.
there was one watch you don't have in your collection that you'd like to have in your collection, what would it be?
Hmm. Um, that's actually quite a good. That's actually quite a good question. I think uh, um, I think I would. I miss in my collection one watch that I always liked, and that for me was maybe a bit the starting point of watch of getting my passion for watches. And you'd be surprised, it's a Swatch watch.
Oh, really?
It was a special edition back then made by Keith
Yeah,
Haring, and I saw
I
that
get
just
that.
relaunched.
Yeah.
But for me, that was a bit my crave watch, because this is the watch that's how I started. And I think I'm not the only one. I'm part of this generation that got hooked into watchmaking or into collecting watches a bit through Swatch, because it was a fun, accessible, unique product, and we were all excited to get the last very limited edition. I even spent the night outside of a shop back then trying to get one of these limited editions, which I didn't. So yeah, if you ask me, it's a good question. I think
Yeah.
it's not necessarily the most technically complex, or I mean, yeah, there's a few watches on my wish list
Mm.
that I like, but it's more this, it's this particular watch because it for me has a strong meaning, a
Yeah.
personal, very
Yeah.
important meaning.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we talk a lot about, you've been in the watch industry for 20 odd years. What do you like about the watch business?
Well, I like the creativity. I like the fact that we maybe have forgotten it a little bit, but we are a creative industry. I mean, it's this capacity of creating incredible objects, beautiful objects, to emotional objects, and to see how they continue living. I mean, it's this idea of something that maybe is a bit anachronic,
Mm.
maybe a little bit, to a certain extent, technically not so useful,
Yeah.
but emotionally very important. And I think it's what I like about this industry, that we can create, we can innovate, we can dare things, and then all the interaction with the people. I mean, it's very rewarding to see how much it creates emotion and how much people appreciate what you can do. So I would say this aspect of this very emotional aspect of it, I think, is what I really appreciate. And then there's another aspect. I mean, I like to travel. I like to. I'm always been somebody very curious, and
Mhm.
the industry is, very export driven. I mean, 95% of our business is obviously done abroad, and
Yeah.
it makes you travel a lot. And I've never hold back on this. And I was one of the first guys who were back in the early years to go to every possible country, because watches are an incredible door opener. I mean, I remember stories in Mongolia and Kyrgyzstan and
Mm.
in very remote places where you'd not expect anybody like me going, but
Yeah.
that's what I really appreciate.
Yeah, there's a universal connection, isn't it? It's driven by passion. So, okay, they're the good things. What about the bad things about the industry? Or is that too much?
Well,
Too,
no, no, there is I think there's a lot of things and a lot of bad things and good things in any industry.
of
But I
course.
think what maybe the most, I would say, frustrating thing is, there has been this industry has been growing very, very strongly in the last 20 years. Since I started, it came from artisanship, if you like, into some sort of semi industry. I wouldn't call it industry like a lot of people do,
Yeah.
because for me it's still a lot of artisanship, but it also dragged along a lot of people who basically do a job. And
Mm.
I think what we're lacking a little bit is we're lacking a bit this, this passionate people. I think we lost a lot about. There is a few, obviously, and there's still a lot, but I think it's lacking people who are passionate, create, dare things, because that's what makes the difference. And
Yeah.
that's maybe the thing that I dislike a little bit about it.
I guess it's
And
being
maybe
driven by financial decisions, and sometimes.
yes, a lot of corporate ideas, a lot of
Yeah.
financials, a lot of managing, a lot of end of the year
Yeah.
results. Also a little bit lately, also a bit too much of investment value. You
Yeah.
see that people suddenly they buy watches not because they like watches, because they believe that when they can flip them around, they can make a short-term profit.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of these things which I think, okay, I mean, they're obviously good for the industry, because they drag the interest, they create a lot of interest into the industry, but on the other side, it takes away the place of the real passionate people, the ones who really, you know, who live and love watchmaking.
Yeah, no,
Just
I agree.
find it financially interesting.
Sure. So, what about what's next on the horizon for you, for Louis Erard? You talked a little bit about your collaborations and your art. You know, what do you
Yeah.
see over the sort of next 12 months?
Well, look, we're on a, I would say I wouldn't say we're on a good, yeah, actually, I would say we're on a good track. I mean, the last few things we launched have been very, very successful. We got a lot of media attention. We got a lot of collectors' attention. Some of the last piece with Vianney was sold out in 4 hours in like
Wow.
no time at all. Well, this is good news, but it also created a lot of frustrations. And I think what's important for me is that we continue building, that we continue offering a very, very, I would say, best value proposition that you can find on the market. That for me is very important. But that we also try to work better with our partners, that we work better with our clients. I think we can improve. We have a lot of way to improve. We obviously want to continue to create, to innovate, to maybe dare also different approaches. But at the same time, I think we also want to solidify and intensify our interactions with our partners and clients, because, you know, it's a community. And I think in any community, it's important that we, you know, we are partners in this community.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Manuel, for sharing your views and opinions about the watch industry and your passions, which was fantastic. If you want to hear more stories or you want to read more stories, please go to www.MrWatchMaster.com. Thank you for watching.